I'd like to take a few moments out of my busy day to talk about the ideas of privilege and oppression, how they fit into the larger theory of intersectionality, and how that theory falls apart at the most integral part of our human existence. I would also like to give my personal opinion on the ideas of privilege and oppression and how they should be handled. So let's begin with a few basic definitions. Privilege is defined as a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a person or group of people, while oppression is defined for the purposes of this video as the state of being subject to unjust treatment or control. The modern social justice warrior concepts behind these two ideas set privilege as an unearned benefit concept, something that no one should be glad of or proud to have, and actually goes further to suggest that privilege should be suppressed or checked, lest they cloud one's ability to understand the plights of those less fortunate. This response illustrates a malcontent with the idea of privilege, to the point of discrediting the ideas, opinions, and experiences of those deemed to have it. On the other side of the coin is the concept of oppression, which the theory of intersectionality views as the greatest form of social currency in an ever-increasingly diverse society of ideas and identities. Oppression, in this sense, especially when compounded alongside other potential causes of oppression, lends a greater sense of validation and credibility to the person experiencing it. The long and short of it is this: the less oppressions you have, the less your ideas, opinions, and experiences matter, whereas the more oppressions you have or face or have the potential to face, the more valid your ideas, opinions, and experiences are. Now, let's switch gears for a moment and discuss a concept called viable offspring. You see, success or failure of any living species is determined by its ability to produce what are called viable offspring. A viable offspring is one which contains the genetic material of the species which created it, and also has the ability to reproduce itself. In this sense, neither a sterile offspring nor one that is genetically incompatible with other members of its species qualifies as a viable offspring. Humans, having several social constructs that run as prerequisites for willful breeding opportunities, have the added requirement of social viability as a tenet of being a viable offspring. In other words, rape is bad. That being said, let's switch gears one more time before we come back to privilege and oppression, and take a moment instead to talk about parenting. Opinions are many and various in the world of parenting, but one factor seems to remain constant across a broad spectrum of parenting styles, and that is this: every parent who loves their children wants what is best for them, both in the short term as well as in the long run. No parent wants their child to suffer, hurt, be irrelevant, or have any other number of bad things happen to them. No parent wants to be the arbiter of disdain in their child's life, and no parent wants to raise a child to be a useless, worthless, or irrelevant adult. And this is where we come back full circle. But before we get back to intersectional theory, let's take a moment to recognize and pay tribute to a maxim of the scientific method. Any theory, in order to remain valid as a theory, must hold true under any conditions of testing. If a theory fails to hold true under any test, the theory is therefore invalid and must be reworked or abandoned. And this concept must be applied to social theories if they are to be given the same credibility as other scientific or mathematical theories. If at any point testing a social theory results in the failure of that theory, then the social theory must be abandoned or reworked. So the question I pose now is this: how do you raise children when operating under the concepts within intersectional theory? Let me clarify. If privilege is something to be suppressed and checked, and oppression should be counted and compiled, how does a parent who wants their child to be a relevant adult properly see that goal to completion without becoming an abusive or neglectful parent? After all, instead of having a child who will one day have to check their privilege, wouldn't it be easier and much more efficient to make sure that they never have any of the privileges that it is within a parent's ability to deny? What about oppression? If more intersecting oppressions codify into a greater relevance in society insofar as one's ideas, opinions, and experiences, then should we not beat our children regularly, deny them love, affection, education, food, and anything else that we can think of for the long-term goal of granting them a more valued place within society as an adult? What is a proactive parent to do if they want their child to grow into a relevant adult? As I said earlier, the success of a species is determined by that species' ability to produce a viable offspring. And when operating within the bounds of intersectional theory, that task seems virtually impossible. So here's the deal. Intersectional theory falls apart when applied to raising children and is therefore invalidated as a theory. I would willingly defend my position against any and all by talking you through the very same circles of logic that intersectional theory keeps as its core of ideology. What intersectionalist wouldn't prefer a mentally retarded mixed-race dwarf albino kid with only one arm and both sets of reproductive organs to a healthy baby? Just think of the head start they'll have. Seriously though, I'm sure a lot of the people who might hear this argument might argue not my points, but rather their intent with replies like, I don't want kids, or I'm never having kids, or even something more aggressive like, I prefer abortions to kids. And your intent is fine. In fact, it's a perfectly respectable decision not to have children. And with 8 billion people on the planet, you'll be hard-pressed to hear me discourage it. People who don't invest in Coca-Cola, however, are not entitled to any say in how that company is run. Children and the continuation of the species represent an investment in the future of humanity, and those who choose not to invest in the future are not entitled to a say in how it will be run. And that is how I see it. When I think of privilege, especially unearned privileges, the only concept that I can compare them to are blessings. And I will not check my blessings. I will count them and be grateful for them, but never take them as granted. As far as oppression is concerned, it is but a challenge, a weight, a puzzle that must be overcome, lifted, and worked out in order to make me a stronger and better person. And I don't back down from them or ask other people to face them in my stead. My challenges are mine, and mine alone, so go get your own. Anyway, that's it for me. If you like what I have to say, you can do the like, share, tango. If you really like me, you can subscribe to my channel so you can see when I put out new content. And as always, this has been Dolphin Radio, broadcast on a frequency too high for humans, updated regularly through the sub-ether.